What I am about to tell you today will destroy everything you thought you knew about forgiveness and death. My name is Antonia Salzano. I am 54 years old, and I am the mother of Blessed Carlo Acutis. For 17 years, I carried a secret that was eating away at my soul like cancer, a resentment so deep that it poisoned every prayer I offered for my son's beatification. Today, for the first time, I will tell the complete truth about what happened on the dawn of October 10th, 2023, exactly 3 years after Carlo's beatification in Assisi, when my deceased son visited me in a dream that transformed forever my understanding of true forgiveness. Since Carlo died on October 12, 2006, at only 15 years old, victim of fulminant leukemia, I have dedicated my entire life to spreading his legacy. I have spoken to millions of people around the world. I have participated in hundreds of interviews. I have organized countless exhibitions about the Eucharistic miracles that my son cataloged with his passion for computer programming and informatics. To the world, I am the strong mother who accepted God's will with faith and courage. But what nobody knew, what I never confessed even to my spiritual director, was the rage that burned in my heart against Dr. Martinelli. Dr. Martinelli was the first physician who attended to Carlo when he began to feel weak and tired in September 2006. For 3 precious weeks, this man diagnosed my son with a simple flu, prescribing rest and vitamins while the leukemia consumed his young body from within. When we finally received the correct diagnosis, it was almost too late. The disease had advanced so much that the doctors at the Policlinico San Donato gave us little hope. For 17 years, every time I spoke about Carlo's story, every time I mentioned his final illness, I felt a stab of fury remembering those lost days. Publicly, I maintained composure and spoke about accepting divine will. But internally, I blamed that man for my son's premature death. I fantasized about confronting him, about making him pay for his medical negligence, about seeing him suffer as I had suffered. But what happened on that October night changed everything. What Carlo revealed to me about the true nature of forgiveness not only healed my wounded heart, but taught me that resentment is the only thing that can truly separate us from our loved ones who have passed on. And more than that, he showed me that when we forgive from the heart, we don't just free the other person, we become living instruments of miracles. This is the story of how my dead son taught me that forgiveness is not forgetting, but remembering differently. And how, through an impossible encounter that science cannot explain, I discovered that love truly is stronger than death. My story with Carlo begins long before his birth on May 3, 1991 in London, where my husband Andrea and I were living temporarily due to his work. Even before holding him in my arms, I knew that child was special. During pregnancy, I experienced an inexplicable peace, as if I was carrying not just a baby, but a mission. When Carlo was just a few months old, we moved to Milan, where he would grow up and where his short but intense life would unfold. From his earliest years, Carlo showed a personality that defied everything I thought I knew about children. While other kids his age were crying and making tantrums, Carlo seemed to possess an inner serenity that amazed everyone who met him. I remember when he was 3 years old, he asked me to take him to Mass every day. Not on Sundays only, like most families, but every single day. "Mama," he would say, with that luminous smile that became his trademark, "Jesus is waiting for me there." At first, I thought it was just a phase, the curiosity of a small child. But as weeks turned into months, and months into years, I realized that my son had a relationship with the Eucharist that I, even as a practicing Catholic, had never experienced. Carlo's childhood was marked by an unusual combination of modernity and sanctity. He loved video games, wore jeans and sneakers, listened to contemporary music, and had a natural ability with computers that amazed his teachers. But he also insisted on attending daily Mass, prayed the Rosary every day, and demonstrated a compassion for others that moved everyone around him. When he was 11 years old, Carlo decided to create his first exhibition about Eucharistic miracles using his computer skills. I watched him spend hours researching, programming, designing presentations that would later travel the world. "Mama," he explained to me one afternoon while organizing photographs of the miracle of Lanciano, "people need to see that Jesus is really present in the Eucharist. Technology can help them believe." That combination of faith and technology, of tradition and innovation, defined my son's short life. He was a modern teenager who loved programming and computers, but who found in the Eucharist his daily strength and inspiration. His friends at school called him the computer guy, but they also knew he was different, that there was something special about his way of loving others. Our family life was simple but filled with joy. Carlo had a special relationship with our animals. He loved our dog Chiara and insisted we help stray animals in our neighborhood. "God loves all his creatures, Mama," he would say while feeding a stray cat or treating a wounded bird. His room was typical of any teenager: computers, books, CDs of his favorite music, posters of his football team. But it also had images of saints, a crucifix above his bed, and always fresh flowers that he himself would change. The transformation began in September 2006. Carlo, who had always been full of energy and vitality, began to show signs of fatigue that worried me. At first, the symptoms were subtle: a little more tiredness after football practice, less enthusiasm for his computer projects, slight loss of appetite. "It's probably the beginning of the school year," my husband Andrea tried to reassure me. "You know how Carlo gets involved in everything: his computer projects, daily mass, helping classmates with their homework. He's probably just overworked." But a mother's intuition is infallible. I knew something was wrong. Carlo, who never complained about anything, began to say he felt strange, that his body didn't respond as usual. The boy who ran everywhere and climbed stairs 2 at a time was beginning to get short of breath with minimal effort. That's when Dr. Martinelli entered our story. Giuseppe Martinelli was a family physician with over 20 years of experience, recommended by friends as competent and caring. When I called his clinic on September 18, 2006, explaining Carlo's symptoms, he scheduled an appointment for the next day. I remember every detail of that first consultation. Dr. Martinelli examined Carlo carefully, took his temperature, listened to his heart and lungs, asked about his eating and sleeping habits. Carlo answered all questions with his characteristic politeness and good humor, even making jokes to lighten the atmosphere. "Signora Salzano," said Dr. Martinelli after completing the examination, "it's clearly a viral flu. At this time of year, with the change of season and return to school, it's very common for teenagers to get these infections. Carlo is a strong, healthy young man. With rest, plenty of fluids, and these vitamins, he'll be perfect in a week or 2. I wanted to believe him. God knows how much I wanted to believe that it was just a simple flu. But as days passed and Carlo's condition didn't improve, in fact it seemed to be getting worse, my maternal concern grew into anguish. On September 25th, I took Carlo back to Dr. Martinelli. This time, the symptoms were more pronounced. The fatigue was constant. Carlo had developed small bruises on his arms and legs that appeared without explanation, and his usual radiant complexion had become pale and drawn. "Doctor, I'm worried," I said directly. "This doesn't look like a simple flu to me. Could you order some blood tests?" Dr. Martinelli examined Carlo again, more carefully this time. I saw a brief shadow of uncertainty cross his face, but then he smiled and shook his head. "Signora, I understand a mother's concern, but believe me, I've seen thousands of cases like this. Some viral infections take longer to resolve, especially in adolescents whose immune systems are dealing with growth and hormonal changes. Let's give it another week with these new vitamins and plenty of rest." That week was torture. Carlo, who had never missed a day of Mass in his life, began to feel too weak to attend daily services. He who spent hours programming his exhibitions about Eucharistic miracles could barely sit at the computer for 30 minutes before feeling exhausted. On October 2nd, exactly 15 days after the first consultation, I took Carlo to Dr. Martinelli for the third time. By then, the symptoms were undeniable. The boy had lost weight, the bruises had multiplied, and most alarming of all, he had developed small bleeding spots on his gums. "Doctor," I said, no longer hiding my desperation, "something is very wrong with my son. I'm begging you, please order blood tests." This time, Dr. Martinelli couldn't ignore what his own eyes were seeing. With a serious expression, he ordered a complete blood count and told us to go immediately to the laboratory. "We'll have the results tomorrow morning," he said, and for the first time, I heard uncertainty in his voice. The next morning, October 3rd, 2006, at 9:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was Dr. Martinelli, and his voice was trembling. "Signora Salzano, you need to bring Carlo to the hospital immediately. The blood tests show. We need to do more specific tests, but please come immediately." That phone call destroyed my world. In the space of a few words, our life went from normal routine to medical emergency. When we arrived at the Policlinico San Donato, Dr. Rodriguez, the hematologist, confirmed what I already feared in my heart. Carlo had fulminant leukemia. If we had detected it 2 or 3 weeks earlier, Dr. Rodriguez explained with professional compassion, we would have had more treatment options. At this stage, the disease has progressed significantly, but we're going to fight with everything we have. Those words, 2 or 3 weeks earlier, became the poisoned dagger that pierced my heart and remained there for 17 years. 2 or 3 weeks. Exactly the time we had lost with Dr. Martinelli's misdiagnoses. Carlo faced his illness with the same serenity with which he had lived his short life. Even while receiving chemotherapy, he continued to worry about others, asking about his friends, wanting to know if his computer exhibitions were helping people discover the Eucharist. "Mama," he told me one afternoon while connected to the IV with medications, "if this is God's will, then there must be a reason. Maybe my illness can help other people believe more." But I was consumed by rage. While Carlo accepted everything with faith and love, I burned with resentment against Dr. Martinelli. During the 9 days of hospitalization before Carlo's death on October 12, 2006, that rage grew like a malignant tumor in my soul. After Carlo's funeral, I tried to channel my pain into something positive. I dedicated myself to spreading his legacy, organizing exhibitions about the Eucharistic miracles he had catalogued, telling his story to anyone who wanted to hear it. In 2013, the beatification process began, and in 2020, Carlo was officially declared blessed by the Catholic Church. Throughout all these years, I spoke to millions of people about Carlo's life and legacy. I became a kind of informal spokesperson for his cause, traveling around the world to share his story. But always, that resentment against Dr. Martinelli was there, like a shadow darkening even the most luminous moments. I never sought him out, never contacted him directly, but in my heart, I blamed him for Carlo's premature death. I fantasized about the day when I might encounter him accidentally and could tell him exactly what I thought about his medical negligence. In my darkest moments, I even wished he would suffer as I had suffered. This was the state of my soul on the night of October 9th, 2023, the eve of the 3rd anniversary of Carlo's beatification. And if this channel has been an answer for you, consider leaving a super thanks. This financial help, however small it may seem, sustains this mission and allows us to continue bringing deep and transformative content to more lives that need this word. On the evening of October 9th, 2023, I was in my study at home in Milan, organizing documents for a new exhibition about Carlo's legacy that would be inaugurated the following month in Rome. The walls around me were filled with photographs of my son, Carlo as a child taking his first communion, Carlo as a teenager programming on his computer, Carlo smiling in his characteristic jeans and sneakers, Carlo in the hospital bed still maintaining his luminous smile even during chemotherapy. Among the documents I was organizing were some photographs I hadn't seen for years, stored in an old box that I rarely opened because the memories were too painful. As I was sorting through them, one particular image fell to the floor as if it had jumped from the box by itself. It was a photograph of Carlo at 14 years old, taken just months before his illness. He was in our garden, hugging our dog Chiara, wearing his favorite t-shirt that said, "Towards Sainthood," a phrase that had become his life motto. His smile in that photo was so radiant, so full of life and joy, that seeing it made my heart contract with pain and longing. I held that photograph in my hands for several minutes, remembering that golden afternoon when it was taken. Carlo had just finished programming a new section of his exhibition about Eucharistic miracles and had come to the garden to play with Chiara. "Mama, come see," he had called to me. "I discovered another miracle in Poland that nobody has documented yet." As I held the photograph, all the pain and rage I carried resurfaced with unexpected intensity. "Why, Carlo?" I whispered to the image. "Why did God take you so young? Why did that doctor have to be so incompetent? Why didn't I insist more on those blood tests from the beginning?" I fell asleep that night in my chair, still holding the photograph against my chest, my face wet with tears that I thought I had learned to control after so many years. And then, something extraordinary happened. In my dream, I found myself in Carlo's room, exactly as it was before his illness. Every detail was perfect. The computer on the desk showing one of his exhibitions about Eucharistic miracles, the books carefully organized on the shelves, the crucifix above the bed, the fresh flowers that he always insisted on changing. Carlo was there, sitting in front of his computer, programming. He appeared exactly as he was at 15 years old, wearing his favorite jeans and the sneakers he loved so much. When he heard me enter, he turned with that luminous smile that had always been capable of illuminating any environment. "Ciao, Mama," he said with the same sweet voice that I had missed for 17 years. "I've been waiting for you." "Carlo, my love, my dear son." I ran to hug him, and the sensation was absolutely real. I could feel his warmth, smell his characteristic scent, feel the texture of his hair under my fingers. "How I've missed you. How much I've missed you." "I know, Mama, and I've been close to you every moment. During every conference you've given about me, every exhibition you've organized, every interview where you've told my story, I've been there. But Carlo, there's something I need to tell you, something I've never confessed to anyone," I began. But he interrupted me gently. "About Dr. Martinelli." Those 3 words hit me like lightning. How could he know what I had never said to anyone? "Yes. I've hated him all these years, Carlo. I know it's wrong, I know it's not Christian, but I can't help it. Because of him, we lost precious time that could have saved your life." Carlo stood up from his chair and came to me. His eyes, which had always been special, now seemed to contain an infinite wisdom that transcended his eternal 15 years. "Mama, do you know what was the most painful moment of my illness?" I thought of all the moments of physical suffering he had endured during chemotherapy, the nights of fever, the pain from medical procedures. "When you were suffering during treatment." "No, Mama. The most painful moment was when I realized that you had begun to hate Dr. Martinelli. I felt your heart hardening, and that hurt me more than any chemotherapy." His words pierced my soul like swords. "But Carlo, he made a mistake because of him." "Mama," Carlo said with that serene authority he had always possessed, even as a child, "sit here next to me. I need to show you something that I learned here in heaven about true forgiveness." I sat next to him at the computer. Instead of the usual exhibitions about Eucharistic miracles, the screen showed scenes from my life over the past 17 years. I saw myself in moments of rage that I thought no one had witnessed. Furious at home while reading medical articles about leukemia and thinking about Dr. Martinelli's mistake. Bitter during moments of prayer when I asked God why he had allowed that man's negligence. resentful during interviews when I mentioned the misdiagnosis. "Do you see, Mama, all this poison in your heart? It's not just hurting you, it's preventing miracles from happening through you." "I don't understand, Carlo." Remember what I always used to say, that the Eucharist was my focal point because there Jesus was truly present, transforming everything? He took my hand, and I felt that familiar warmth that I had missed so much. Forgiveness works exactly the same way. When you forgive from a true heart, Christ becomes present in your pain and transforms it into love. Carlo touched the computer screen, and the scenes changed. Now I could see Dr. Martinelli over the years since Carlo's death. I saw him at night, unable to sleep, tormented by guilt. I saw him crying while reading articles about Carlo's beatification. I saw him visiting children's hospitals, working as a volunteer. Dr. Martinelli also cried when he learned of the correct diagnosis, Mama. That day in October 2006, when the blood test results arrived, he locked himself in his office and wept for hours. He knew he had made a mistake. But that doesn't change what happened. Carlo, you're right, it doesn't change what happened. But look what it changed in him. The screen showed more scenes. Dr. Martinelli leaving clinical medicine after Carlo's death, dedicating himself to volunteer work in pediatric hospices, founding a non-profit organization to help families with terminally ill children, studying every night to become a better doctor, even though he no longer practiced medicine for money. For 17 years, he has worked for free taking care of children who are dying, Mama. Your son's death transformed him from a doctor who sometimes made mistakes into a man who dedicated his entire life to not allowing other children to die due to medical negligence. I felt my anger beginning to crack, like ice breaking under spring sun. But Carlo, how can I forgive him? How can I forget? It's not about forgetting, Mama. It's about remembering differently. Carlo showed me another scene on the screen, the Eucharistic miracle of Buenos Aires that he had documented in one of his exhibitions. Remember this miracle, the human heart that appeared in the host? Yes, you were so excited when you discovered it. When Jesus transforms bread into his body in the Eucharist, he doesn't destroy the bread, he transforms it into something infinitely more beautiful and valuable. Forgiveness transforms your pain the same way. It doesn't erase what happened, but transforms it into a heart that beats with love, just as the Eucharist transforms bread into the heart of Christ. Carlo stood up and placed his hand over my heart. Immediately, I felt an indescribable warmth spreading through my entire chest. When you forgive truly, Mama, 3 things happen. First, you free the person from their mistake and allow God to transform them, as happened with Dr. Martinelli. Second, you liberate your own heart to love again without fear. Third, you become an instrument of miracles, because forgiveness is the greatest miracle that exists. But Carlo, I don't know how to do it. How do I forgive someone who caused so much pain? You don't do it with your strength, Mama. You do it with mine. Carlo hugged me again, and I felt that supernatural peace that had always characterized him. Remember when I used to say that the Eucharist gave me daily strength? That's because I wasn't trying to be holy with my own strength. I let Jesus be holy in me. And forgiveness works the same way? Exactly. You don't need to feel ready to forgive, Mama. You just need to choose to forgive, and then let Christ do the forgiving through you. Carlo moved away a little and looked directly into my eyes. Mama, tomorrow, October 10th, at exactly 3:30 p.m., Dr. Martinelli will be visiting my tomb in Assisi. He does this every year on the anniversary of my beatification, but he goes alone when he thinks no one will see him. How do you know that, Carlo? Because I've been watching him, just as I've been watching you. For 17 years, he has gone to my tomb to ask for my forgiveness. He cries, Mama, he cries just as you cried when you lost me. The revelation left me speechless. Dr. Martinelli visiting Carlo's tomb every year, asking for forgiveness? He will be alone, kneeling, crying. He carries the same pain you carry, but his pain is guilt, while yours is resentment. Both poisons are destroying the hearts that feel them. What do you want me to do, Carlo? I want you to go to him, Mama. I want you to tell him that I forgave him at the exact moment of diagnosis, when he realized his mistake and wept in his office. And I want you to tell him that you forgive him now from your whole heart. But Carlo, I don't know if I can. Mama, Carlo interrupted with that sweet firmness that had always characterized him. Remember the miracle of Lanciano that I documented? The flesh and blood that have remained intact for over 1,000 years? Yes, of course. That miracle happens because the priest who consecrated that host had doubts about the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. God performed the miracle precisely for him, to strengthen his weak faith. God transforms our weaknesses into opportunities for miracles. Carlo took my hands in his. Your weakness, your inability to forgive with your own strength, is exactly what God wants to use to perform a miracle. When you go to Dr. Martinelli tomorrow, you won't be speaking with your words, you'll be speaking with mine. You won't be forgiving with your heart, you'll be forgiving with Christ's heart. What if I can't find the words, Carlo? The words will come, Mama. Just as the Eucharist transforms bread without the bread ceasing to be bread, forgiveness will transform your heart without you ceasing to be you. You will still be my Mama. You will still feel the sadness of losing me. But you will also be something more. You will be an instrument of divine mercy. Carlo stood up and went to his desk, where he picked up one of his Eucharistic miracle exhibitions. Do you know why I was so passionate about documenting these miracles, Mama? Because you wanted people to believe in the real presence of Jesus. More than that, I wanted people to understand that miracles aren't something that happened only in the past. They're something that happen every day when we open our hearts to let God transform us. He showed me images of various Eucharistic miracles, Lanciano, Buenos Aires, Bolsena, Orvieto. Each of these miracles happened because someone needed to see God's love in a tangible way. Tomorrow, you and Dr. Martinelli will be living your own Eucharistic miracle. What do you mean? You will see Christ present in your pain, transforming it into love. Dr. Martinelli will see Christ present in his guilt, transforming it into redemption. And both of you together will become a living testimony that love is stronger than death, forgiveness is stronger than guilt, and mercy is stronger than justice. Carlo approached the window of his room, which in the dream overlooked not our garden in Milan, but the hills of Assisi. Mama, for 17 years you have told my story to the world. You have organized exhibitions about the Eucharistic miracles I documented. You have spoken about my love for the Eucharist and how it was my daily strength. Yes, and I felt honored to do it. But now, Mama, you're going to live your own Eucharistic miracle. You're going to experience personally what I always tried to explain, that when we let Christ transform our pain, we become living instruments of his love. Carlo, I'm scared. What if I see Dr. Martinelli and all the anger comes back? What if I can't do what you're asking? Carlo turned to me with that luminous smile that had always been his trademark. Mama, do you remember what I used to say when I was small and was afraid of something? You would say that Jesus was with you. And I would say, if Jesus is with me, what can be stronger than that? Carlo approached and kissed my forehead, just as he used to do when he was alive. Jesus is with you too, Mama, and tomorrow, when you see Dr. Martinelli, you won't be alone. I'll be there, the Holy Spirit will be there, and most importantly, Christ will be there, transforming your heart just as he transforms bread and wine in every Mass. But how will I know what to say? You'll know, Mama. Just as the priest knows the words of consecration, you'll know the words of forgiveness. They're not your words, they're words that have been waiting 17 years to be spoken. Carlo sat down at his computer again and began typing. I'm updating my exhibition about Eucharistic miracles, Mama. I'm adding a new section about the miracle that will happen tomorrow in Assisi. What miracle? The miracle of a mother who thought she was too hurt to forgive, and a doctor who thought he was too guilty to be forgiven, discovering together that divine mercy is infinite and that love truly is stronger than death. The dream began to fade, but Carlo's voice remained clear and strong. Mama, remember, when you forgive Dr. Martinelli tomorrow, you're not just freeing him from 17 years of guilt, you're freeing yourself from 17 years of resentment, and most importantly, you're opening the door for God to work miracles through both of your transformed hearts. Carlo, wait, don't go yet. I'm not going anywhere, Mama. I never went anywhere. I've been here all along, waiting for you to heal your heart so that together we could help heal other hearts. And with those words, Carlo's luminous smile was the last thing I saw before waking up. I awakened at 6:00 a.m. on October 10th, 2023, with tears streaming down my face and an absolute certainty that pulsed in my heart like a second heartbeat. I needed to travel to Assisi. The dream had been so real, so vivid, that I could still smell Carlo's characteristic scent, still feel the warmth of his embrace, still hear his voice as clearly as when he was alive. During the 2-hour drive from Milan to Assisi, I fought against every voice of reason that tried to convince me that what I had experienced was merely a dream, the product of grief and emotional stress. You're a 54-year-old woman, my rational mind insisted. You're driving 2 hours because of a dream about your dead son. This is exactly the kind of behavior that makes people think that religious faith is psychological compensation. But something stronger than reason was driving me toward Assisi. Every time doubt tried to take root in my mind, I remembered Carlo's luminous smile, the supernatural peace that emanated from his presence, the specific details he had given me about Dr. Martinelli visiting his tomb at 3:30 p.m. I arrived at the sanctuary of Eremo delle Carceri at 3:15 p.m., 15 minutes before the time Carlo had specified. My heart was beating so fast that I could hear it in my ears. The October afternoon was crisp and clear, with that golden light characteristic of autumn in Umbria that makes everything seem touched by the divine. Carlo's tomb was in a lateral chapel, a simple and luminous place that reflected his unpretentious personality. I approached slowly, my legs trembling with nervousness and anticipation. What if Dr. Martinelli didn't show up? What if the time was wrong? What if everything had been just a grief-induced hallucination? At exactly 3:30 p.m., I saw an elderly man approaching the chapel with slow, hesitant steps. Even from behind, even after 17 years, I immediately recognized Dr. Giuseppe Martinelli. He was much older, his hair now completely gray, his shoulders curved as if carrying an invisible weight. But it was definitely him. I hid behind a column and watched as he approached Carlo's tomb. He knelt down slowly, his movements showing the stiffness of age and the weight of years. And then, in the sacred silence of that place, I heard him begin to speak in a whisper broken by tears. "Carlo," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "It's me again. Giuseppe, I know I come here every year. I know I say the same things, but I need you to know. I need your forgiveness. For 17 years I've carried this guilt. 17 years, Carlo. Every child I see in the hospitals where I volunteer, every terminally ill young person I try to help, I see your face." I felt my heart contract hearing the pain in his voice. This man, whom I had hated for so long, was suffering just as much as I had suffered. "I should have diagnosed you correctly from the beginning," he continued, his voice barely audible. "I should have ordered those blood tests immediately. Those 3 weeks we lost. Those 3 weeks that could have saved your life. It was my fault, Carlo. It was my fault. Doctor." Martinelli began to cry with a pain so deep and genuine that all the resentment I had carried began to crack like a dam under pressure. This was not the arrogant, negligent man I had imagined all these years. This was a human being destroyed by guilt, seeking redemption that he believed he could never find. I left clinical medicine after you died, Carlo. I couldn't risk making another mistake like that. For 17 years, I've worked for free in pediatric hospices. I founded the association Carlo Acutis to help families with terminally ill children. I've studied every night to become a better doctor, even though I no longer practice medicine for money. But nothing takes away this guilt. I stood there behind the column, frozen, my heart beating wildly. Carlo's words from the dream echoed in my mind. When you forgive Dr. Martinelli tomorrow, you're not just freeing him from 17 years of guilt, you're freeing yourself from 17 years of resentment. Please, Carlo, Dr. Martinelli continued, now sobbing openly. If you can hear me, if there's life after death, as your mother always says in her conferences, please forgive me. Please give me a sign that you don't hate me for what I did. That was my moment. I felt a supernatural strength filling my legs, moving my feet, guiding my steps. It was as if Carlo himself was pushing me gently forward. I approached Dr. Martinelli slowly, my own heart breaking at seeing this man's pain. When I touched his shoulder softly, he turned around with an expression of terror and shame that I will never forget. His eyes, red with tears, widened in recognition and horror when he saw who I was. Signora Salzano, he whispered, his voice barely audible. God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you would be here. I can leave. Doctor, I said, and the words that came out of my mouth were not my words. They were Carlo's words, flowing through me like water through a clean channel. My son sent me here. He wants you to know that he forgave you at the exact moment you realized your mistake and cried in your office on October 3rd, 2006. Dr. Martinelli stared at me as if he had seen a ghost. How do you know about that? Nobody saw me that day. Carlo saw you, doctor, and he wants you to know something else. All the work you've done these 17 years, all the children you've helped, all the families you've comforted in pediatric hospices. He's been there with you. Every life you've saved, every hand you've held, every tear you've dried. My son has been there guiding you. The old man began to tremble. Signora, I don't deserve. After what I did. Doctor, I interrupted, feeling Christo's love flowing through me like an unstoppable river. Look at me. Look into my eyes and listen carefully. I forgive you. From my whole heart, with all the love I feel for my son, I forgive you completely. The effect of those words was immediate and devastating. Doctor, Martinelli collapsed in sobs so deep that his whole body shook. I knelt down next to him, and following an impulse that I knew was not my own, I embraced him. There we were, two people who had shared the same pain from different perspectives for 17 years, finally united in the healing power of forgiveness. I felt the wall of resentment that I had built around my heart crumbling like sandcastles before the waves. But how? How can you forgive me? He asked between tears. I killed your son. No, doctor, you didn't kill my son. You made a human mistake, and that mistake has tortured you for 17 years. But look what God did with your mistake. He transformed you from a doctor who sometimes failed into a man who dedicated his entire life to ensuring that other children don't die due to medical negligence. I helped Dr. Martinelli to stand up, and together we remained there before Carlo's tomb, two human beings transformed by the power of divine mercy. Signora, he said, wiping his tears, you don't know how many nights I've prayed for this moment. How many times I've dreamed of being able to ask your forgiveness. And you don't know, doctor, how many nights I've burned with anger against you, how this resentment was poisoning my soul, preventing me from being the mother Carlo needed me to be, even after his death. Dr. Martinelli told me his complete story over the following hours. How the guilt over Carlo's misdiagnosis had transformed him from an ordinary family doctor into a man obsessed with medical perfection and service to others. How he had sold his private clinic and donated the money to found the Carlo Acutis Association for families with terminally ill children. How he had studied every night for 17 years to become a better doctor, even though he no longer practiced for profit. Every child I help, he told me, I do it thinking of Carlo. Every family I comfort, I do it seeking his forgiveness. Every hour I study, I do it to honor his memory. I, in turn, told him about my 17 years of resentment, how that anger had poisoned even the most beautiful moments of Carlo's beatification, how I had carried that secret hatred like a cancer in my soul. But today, I said, feeling a peace I hadn't experienced since before Carlo's illness, I understand what my son always tried to teach me, that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's remembering differently, that God can transform our deepest pain into our greatest ministry. Before leaving Assisi that evening, Dr. Martinelli and I made a pact. We would work together to spread Carlo's legacy, but in a new way. He would tell his story of transformation through guilt, and I would testify about the power of forgiveness. Together, we would be living witnesses that love is truly stronger than death. In the months that followed, our joint testimony touched thousands of lives. We began speaking together at conferences around the world, Dr. Martinelli sharing how Carlo's death had transformed him from a fallible doctor into a man dedicated entirely to serving others, and I testifying about how Carlo's visit from beyond had taught me that forgiveness is the greatest miracle that exists. The response has been extraordinary. In less than 6 months, we have spoken to over 50 Suezaren people in 12 different countries. Doctors write to us saying that our story has helped them deal with their own medical mistakes with more humility and compassion. Mothers who have lost children tell us that our testimony has helped them find peace in forgiveness. Families destroyed by resentment share that our story showed them the path to reconciliation. But the most beautiful miracle of all is what happened in our own hearts. Dr. Martinelli, who for 17 years carried the crushing weight of guilt, now radiates a peace that can only come from divine forgiveness. And I, who for 17 years burned with resentment, now feel a love for this man that I can only describe as supernatural. How is this possible? People often ask us. How can you love someone you hated for so long? And our answer is always the same. We didn't do it with our own strength. Christ did it in us, through us, for us. Today, exactly 8 months after that miraculous encounter in Assisi, I understand that Carlo orchestrated everything with the same precision with which he programmed his exhibitions about Eucharistic miracles. Just as he used technology to show the world that Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist, he used our pain to show that Christ is truly present in forgiveness. Dr. Martinelli and I are no longer the same people we were before October 10, 2023. We are living witnesses that forgiveness doesn't just change the past, it transforms the present and opens unimaginable possibilities for the future. Every day, as I continue to share Carlo's legacy around the world, I carry with me the profound truth that my son taught me in that supernatural dream, that when we forgive from the heart, we don't just free the other person from their mistakes and free ourselves from resentment. We become living instruments of divine love, exactly like the Eucharist that Carlo loved so much. And every night, when I pray before going to sleep, I feel Carlo's presence near me, smiling with that luminous smile that conquered the world, whispering in my heart, "Well done, Mama. Now you understand. Love is truly stronger than death." And if this channel has been an answer for you, consider leaving a super thanks. This financial help, however small it may seem, sustains this mission and allows us to continue bringing deep and transformative content to more lives that need this word. Today, I am no longer just Carlo's mother who spreads his legacy. I am a living witness that miracles still happen, that love conquers hatred, that forgiveness heals the deepest wounds, and that our loved ones who have passed on continue to care for us from the other side. If you are carrying resentment in your heart, if there is someone you cannot forgive, if anger is poisoning your soul, I want you to know. You are not condemned to live with this pain forever. Christ wants to transform your heart, just as he transforms bread and wine in every Mass. Forgiveness is possible, healing is possible, and love is always, always stronger than death. This is Carlo's message for you, transmitted through a mother who learned that the greatest miracle is not avoiding suffering, but allowing God to transform our suffering into instruments of love. May the blessed Carlo Acutis intercede for you, and may you discover, as I discovered, that when we forgive from the heart, we don't just change our own lives. We become channels through which God touches other hearts and performs miracles that human logic cannot explain. In the name of Jesus, who taught us to forgive as we wish to be forgiven, Amen.